Chapter 19. Ghosts and Keys. I'd thought the heat would fade overnight. That sleep and the shade of my curtains would dull the spark. It didn't. I still felt it, tingling on my lips, his mouth on mine, like kissing a ghost. I'd waited for my dormmates to get dressed, body aching in a way that wasn't pain, just memory. It was written all across my face, etched into the pink glow of my cheeks, the way my eyes curled into stubborn crescents that refused to fade. Anne joined me in the noise of breakfast, buzzing like the rim of a potion about to boil over. Chatter rose around us as the great hall filled with oversleepers, joined by the clang of goblets and the sweep of owls overhead. It was the kind of chaos that usually made my head ring, but today I floated through it. Even Anne's musings felt like a background hum.
"I'm pretty sure Imelda saw you,"
she said, smirking as she poured her drink.
"She was fuming last night."
My smile faltered just enough to show appropriate concern, though it passed as quickly as it took Imelda to shoot me the most devastating glare from across the table.
"I know,"
I murmured, eyes lowered.
"She asked him last week, before everything."
He hadn't let go of my hand, not once. Not when we'd reached the base of the common room stairs. Not when we'd zigzagged through couches and armchairs. Not even when we'd sunk into our favourite spot by the window. I'd felt the stairs, heard the whispers, known, realised, then and there, what it meant. A Gaunt and a Carve, the offspring of the black sheep generation, the daughter of the traitor who'd robbed the bloodline of its purity. A Gaunt and a half-blood. I'd forgotten, or maybe I'd just refused to remember. Ominous had only smiled, pride laced with defiance like he'd just won a game he'd been forced to play. Imelda's glare had burned a hole into the back of my head, her pure blood seething. But it hadn't followed me to sleep. I'd endured my share of nasty comments and cruel smiles at Beaubaton, and I'd never cared for them. The Gaunts would catch up to us sooner or later. We had decided, with breaths and touches instead of words, that later was better. Anne shifted beside me, slowly reaching for my hand.
"I'm sorry,"
she whispered, reading my face like a book.
"Screw them. Screw everyone."
I squeezed her fingers and managed a smile, aimed for her, but my gaze had already drifted down the table. New faces had joined the Slytherin end, shoulders hunched like they were afraid to be caught in the wrong place. One of them was Poppy. Her small face peeked out from behind Sebastian, who was busy wrapping a green scarf around her, like he was luring her into a cult of snakes and mischief. She flicked me a shy smile when she noticed my stare, her fingers clutching at the fabric, chin and nose disappearing into it. I'd worn that scarf more than once. I knew the smell, fire and cedar, warm, dry, grounding. I looked away, stirring my tea without tasting it, shadows creeping into the edges of my vision. My eyes dropped to the red mark on my wrist, a subtle string pulling in my chest. I'd left the corsage on my bedside table, flinched when I'd taken it off this morning, let it bite into my skin through the haze of sleep. There it was, the gleaming, slightly painful bruise of the choice I'd made. It wasn't him. It had never been him. And yet, sometimes, it felt like I still wore the ghost of him. Sebastian. He had never loved me. Not really. But he'd seen me, like a spark to cradle, a flame to stoke. And for a while, that had been enough. I'd learned to crave the chaos he brought. The charm, the pull, the way he turned guilt into adventure, fear into fire. He'd made me feel wanted, valuable. like I mattered, just by standing next to him. It was his kind of love. Not wrong, just different, grave, possessive. And I'd orbited around the heat of his heart long enough to fall into the snare of it. The slow, undeniable dependency. I'd bent to fit into the mold he'd shaped for me. Even after the scriptorium, even after the Cruciatus, I'd let it happen. With Poppy, he could be the sun. She wouldn't burn back. She would shine just for him. But ominous, he didn't ask me to shine. He just held the light. It wasn't the easier choice, or the safer one, but it was the true one.